If you think growing bananas is just for the tropics or you need fancy fertilizers to get results like this, I would think again. Kevin Espiritu here from Epic Gardening. I've spent the last 18 months cracking the code on growing bananas at home. And let's just say some of my methods are a little unconventional. I'll talk about that fertilizer tip a little bit later, but the truth is I've killed more banana plants than I care to admit. So I'm going to show you every mistake that I made so you don't have to repeat them, from ripped leaves to frozen leaves to improper sucker management to the banana family you have to know about to keep the cycle of bananas coming. So let's get into it and cultivate that subscribe button, and I will bless you with 25% thicker bananas. And let's 25% thicker banana, and let's get into it. So you don't have to live in Hawaii to grow bananas, but you do have to understand where they came from so you can optimize your garden for their success. Bananas came from Southeast Asia. That's where they all hail from, and there's so many different varieties, which means they're used to hot, humid conditions with a lot of moisture, a lot of rainfall, especially at certain times of the year. But like I mentioned, there's so many different types. There's a lot of ornamental bananas out there, and then there's your edible bananas. So you might look at one, say it looks really cool, I'm gonna grow this red banana that looks crazy. The truth is you may not really ever get fruit from it, so it's good to go with a couple tried and true varieties. So first you have the most popular banana out there, which would be the Cavendish group of bananas. Dwarf Cavendish is a good one for the backyard, but if you are in a colder climate, I have the big honker back here. That's actually not a Cavendish, that is a blue Java, which is a little bit more cold hardy for those of you who really don't live in a tropical or even subtropical climate. Next place you can go wrong is planting it in the wrong location. So first off, temp is absolutely crucial, probably the most important part of growing bananas. Almost all bananas will die when you get down to 32 degrees Fahrenheit or freezing, 0 Celsius. Even cold hardy bananas will stop fruiting at about 55 degrees Fahrenheit or so. So yeah, it's still a warm climate loving plant, but there are some techniques you can do to increase your chances of success. So location and temperature, super important. Next up is wind. Notice these leaves. These leaves are absolutely shredded to death. And I think this is probably an adaptive response of the banana plant to be able to cut its own leaves without the leaves themselves dying. But you'll see a lot of this happen if you put it in an area with a lot of wind. This is where I chose. It's a decent location, but if I had another shot at it, I might put it in an area with a little bit of windbreak. Maybe there were some trees blocking the most common wind path, so I didn't get as much leaf shred. And then you have space. So I thought I'd be clever early on and plant two different varieties right next to each other, my blue Java and my Cavendish style banana. The truth is, it's not a good idea. They need about 6 to 8 feet of space because, as you can see, just this one banana with my flowering head and my fruit, it's massive. It's bigger than my wingspan, and that's about 6.5 feet or so. So 6 to 8 feet of spacing is a good idea because they're going to start producing more than you think. You've got your location, now you have to figure out how to not mess up the planting process, which I've also done until recently. So I've got this young banana here. These are my older bananas, and take a look at how they're planted. The ground is quite a bit lower than the mound that they're planted on. You gotta plant your bananas on a mound. So what I like to do, come in with a shovel and dig out a little bit, loosen that native soil up, but then grab a bunch of compost and organic matter and hill it up around the banana as you plant it. So what you don't wanna do is bury this too deep. The pot it comes in is probably a good soil line for where to match on your mound. But much like planting an avocado, which likes a lot of drainage, you probably want to dig a hole only about this deep or so and leave this much of this soil chunk above ground to mound over. Your banana is planted. This is where you can really mess up. I did this. You just need to go absolutely absurd with the amount of organic matter, water, liquid fertilizer, all that good stuff that you give to your banana. So I have a bucket of compost here. I'd be throwing a bucket of compost on really as often as you feel like it. I did this far too little during this banana's growth, and I think that's why I missed almost a season's worth of growth out of the banana. So come on, this is why you build it up on a mound. You throw a big healthy dose of compost on, keep building that mound up. And then we have the magic can. What is in this can? I think you might have an idea. I was doing something a little naughty earlier on in the video. This is my own urine, my friends, diluted 10 to 1 with water. You don't even have to do that if you don't want to, but it's pretty potent, let's just say that. I'll give the bananas a little bit of a break. So you just come in and toss it on. Why? Well, if you think about the makeup of urine. It's actually ammonia, which then, due to the microbes in the soil, breaks down into nitrites and nitrates, which provide nitrogen to the plant. And bananas are a extremely nitrogen heavy plant. So do you have to pee on your banana? No. But to be honest with you, it's more sustainable than peeing in a toilet with fresh water and then flushing that down the drain and saying, oh, who cares, you know? So I like to do this. I think it's a good idea. You can also, if you're a little bit more sane, just use a liquid organic fertilizer that's high in nitrogen, dilute that down. And every time I'd water the banana, especially early on in its growth, I would throw a little fert on. If you've done your job right, your bananas are gonna start growing like crazy. They're gonna shoot up and you'll have these big, thick trunks. It's not really a trunk. A banana is actually sort of a pseudo stem is what it's called. It's all these leaves wrapped around, kind of like the way an onion works to seem like a trunk, but that's just a little bit of nerdy botany for you. What I'm talking about here are some of these weird offshoots that start to come up at the base of where you planted your main banana. These are the pups or the suckers. Now, you need some of these, you don't need all of these, and there's two main types. There are the sort of narrow-leafed, sword-like sucker leaves that start to come up out of an offshoot like this. Those are the good ones. Leave those ones, or leave at least one of them. If you start to see a broad-leafed sucker, which I don't have, but it's gonna be a much larger leaf, those ones are coming up closer to the surface. The root system isn't quite as developed or strong, and it tends not to produce a lot of fruit. So that's more of like a true sucker, almost like in a tree situation, there's something called a water sprout that comes up kind of near the base and just wastes a lot of resources. So take the broadleaf suckers out, cut them off at the ground, or even take a knife and slice it off of that main mother underground. Because sometimes you'll notice if you cut these, they'll keep coming back. So leave at least one of these, because later on, when I show you how to harvest this, you're gonna have to figure out how to get next season's crop. This is the part we've been waiting for. How do you harvest the banana? How do you know if it's ripe? How do you know if it's even fruiting and flowering correctly? You'll see this sort of purplish flower structure called the bell, but you won't see it dangling down here. You'll actually see it all the way up here, and you won't see any of these bananas at the start. It'll start popping out right around here or so, and as it matures, what's gonna happen is it's going to extend downwards, and then what are called banana hands will start to form. So you can see these little clusters of bananas. There's one right here, here's another cluster, there's another cluster, there's one, and if you look at the actual stem, you can see where they're all emanating from. Remember when you buy it at the grocery store, they're all connected to that one point? That's a banana hand. So when you see about 6 to 8 hands worth of bananas, do something that I honestly should have done already. Like a lot of plants, once you have all the bananas that you really want, you can remove the flowering tip, because it's really just going to produce more growth that you don't need. I don't have any more hands below here, so come down at least a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 inches, and grab some pruners and just clip this right off. It's a little bit painful, but this will start to redirect more of the plant's energy towards ripening up these bananas, which we have to figure out, how do you know if these guys are ripe? So take a look at these bananas. What I have here is some of the larger, more mature ones. These are the first hands to have formed right up here. And then as you go down, they get smaller and they are less mature. But none of them are yellow, and that's actually fine. What we're looking for are these ridges on the bananas to start to smooth out just a little bit. And I'm starting to see that happen right here, and I'm also starting to see these go slightly yellow. If they go full yellow, you've actually waited too long while your bananas are ripening up, which can take a while. You might have the most dastardly thing happen to you, and it might actually just break on the stem. So we rigged up a simple conduit structure here. All it is 2 conduit that cross over and cradle it right up here, because there's so much weight coming off of this that it might snap, especially if there's a big storm or something like that. So make sure you do this. And then if you want to boost your harvest, you can use what's called a banana bag. It's like a green bag you put around this entire structure, and it will speed up your harvest by about 2 weeks or so. You could also use a clear bag, or like me, you could just do nothing at all and let it ripen naturally. It's been a long time coming. This is a momentous day here at Epic Gardening headquarters. So grab somewhere so that your banana hands do not fall down. Support it, grab a saw, cut it off, and we'll talk about how to ripen it off of the tree. Whoa. So we'll toss our heavy-handed bananas into the shed. It's just out of direct sunlight. Cool place, dark place, dry place. And they're gonna sit here for probably about 4 to 8 days or so. If you wanted to speed it up, you could cut the hands off. This connection point right here, that is where the hand is. So if you cut that off, threw that in a paper bag with like an apple or something like that, as long as the thing you're putting it in there with produces ethylene, it will speed up this ripening process. But honestly, I'm just gonna wait and see how these things taste in a little bit. We're probably gonna make something with them over on my Epic Homesteading channel where I show you how to use the stuff that you grow. But we have our bananas grown. The problem is, how do we get bananas next year? Our banana has been harvested, which means that this particular plant right here is never going to produce a cluster of bananas ever again, which is why it's good to think of banana plants more as families and less as individual plants. So I present to you the banana family tree. What we have here is the grandmother. This is the one that we just harvested off of. She's done. She probably needs to be cut down somewhat soon, chopped up and put back on the mound to feed her progeny. And then you have right here, this one that's growing right next to grandma. This is the mother, right? So this is the one that's going to produce a cluster of bananas next season, hopefully. So she, of course, was the third family member, which would be a pup. Now that pup on this particular cluster of bananas hasn't yet formed, but as I remove grandmother, allow mother to flourish, a pup will start to come up, and that's going to be the daughter that's going to produce the season after that. So think about bananas as really clusters of 3 plants. Don't do too much with anything more than that. If you see a 4th, 5th, 6th pup, feel free to chop that one off or try to propagate it and plant it in a different area. So I encourage you to grow stuff that you might struggle with. This took me a while to get right. And if you need some more guides on not killing trees and fruits, check out this playlist right here. This has been Kevin, Spiritually Forever Gardening. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.